We counted down the 8 most deadly incidents where food itself became the killer. From lethal contests and invisible allergens to toxic delicacies and everyday meals that turned fatally wrong, each case on this list exposed a hidden danger in the simple act of eating. These ranked deaths revealed how routine bites, trusted venues, and even legal products could deliver the ultimate price. No one was immune. Let us begin with number 8, where a public eating contest turned catastrophic in mere minutes. A rising star on the local competitive eating circuit, 23-year-old Marcus Chang entered the county fair's annual hot dog contest with confidence. He had trained for months, practicing with water-soaked buns and timed drills, and he had earned small trophies at regional events. The rules were simple: eat as many hot dogs as possible in 10 minutes. Spectators crowded the stage as the countdown began. At 2 minutes, Marcus swallowed a large, unchewed section of hot dog. He froze, eyes wide, hands rising instinctively to his throat. Bystanders mistook his distress for theatrics, but within seconds his face turned dusky. A friend attempted the Heimlich maneuver, but with incorrect hand placement and no real training, the obstruction remained. The announcer shouted for help. By the time the first 911 call connected, Marcus had collapsed, his airway completely blocked. Cyanosis deepened as precious seconds slipped away. Paramedics arrived at the 4-minute mark, beyond the critical window for oxygen deprivation. Despite advanced airway techniques and chest compressions, Marcus was pronounced dead at the scene. The medical examiner's report cited complete tracheal blockage with undigested food. Investigation revealed the contest operated without any medical staff on site, violating new recommendations for event permits. In response, the county mandated on-site emergency medical technicians for all future eating competitions, and several municipalities followed suit. For Marcus, a passion for competition collided with a preventable gap in emergency readiness, turning a public spectacle into tragedy. On a Friday evening in May, 36-year-old Dana Patel sat down at her favorite seafood restaurant. She handed her server a printed allergy card, bold letters spelling out a severe shellfish allergy. The kitchen staff read her request and assured her of safe handling, but as her meal was prepared, a single fryer used moments before for shrimp was reused for her fries. Less than 1 milligram of protein transferred, invisible and tasteless. Dana's first bite triggered a tightness in her throat. Within 60 seconds, hives spread across her arms. Her voice rasped, and she reached into her purse for her EpiPen. The device clicked, but failed to deploy. It had expired 2 months earlier. Her breathing grew labored. Restaurant staff called 911 and searched for a backup injector, but none was available. 3 minutes after exposure, Dana collapsed. Paramedics arrived at the 9-minute mark, found her in cardiac arrest, and administered advanced life support. But resuscitation was unsuccessful. The coroner listed anaphylactic shock due to food allergen exposure as the cause of death. Health inspectors cited the restaurant for inadequate allergen training and improper fryer protocols. City Council passed an ordinance requiring all food service workers to complete annual allergen safety courses and requiring restaurants to stock unexpired epinephrine auto-injectors. Dana's death, measured in micrograms and minutes, revealed how the smallest oversight can bypass every warning and turn a meal into a silent, unstoppable threat. 82-year-old Harold Jensen lived at Rosewood Care Home, a facility known for its quiet halls and strict routines. Following a minor stroke, Harold developed dysphagia, a swallowing disorder common among the elderly. His medical chart specified a soft, minced diet, but on a Tuesday afternoon, a new kitchen worker served him standard meatloaf, cut into pieces too large for safe swallowing. Harold ate alone in the dining room, unsupervised, while staff rotated through shift change. At 12:18 in the afternoon, he attempted to swallow a dense bite. The cough that followed was weak, barely audible. No one was present to notice his distress. Within minutes, Harold's airway became partially blocked. Oxygen levels dropped, but the symptoms were subtle: a slack posture, pale skin, a slow slide into unconsciousness. He was discovered nearly 2 hours later during routine rounds, unresponsive, lips blue, food fragments lodged deep in the trachea. Paramedics confirmed asphyxiation on arrival. The autopsy revealed aspirated meat occluding the airway, with evidence of prolonged hypoxia. The state investigation found Rosewood in violation of minimum supervision standards and modified texture diet protocols. Inspectors cited inadequate staffing ratios and lack of meal monitoring. The facility was fined, and new regulations were introduced. All high-risk residents were now required to have direct supervision during meals, and kitchen staff were required to complete annual dysphagia training. Harold's death, undramatic and silent, exposed a hidden danger: how institutional neglect and a single oversight in food preparation can turn an ordinary meal into a fatal event. On a Sunday morning in late September, 49-year-old Lisa Montgomery purchased a package of pre-sliced deli meat from a neighborhood supermarket. The label read, "Ready to eat," promising convenience and safety. Over the next 2 days, Lisa developed vague symptoms: mild nausea, muscle aches, and a low fever. She attributed these to a seasonal bug. By the 48-hour mark, confusion and rapid breathing set in. Her husband called emergency services as her skin turned clammy and her blood pressure plummeted. In the emergency department, doctors noted severe hypotension and multi-organ dysfunction. Blood cultures isolated Listeria monocytogenes, a bacterium notorious for thriving in cold, moist environments and forming biofilms on industrial slicing equipment. Despite aggressive intravenous antibiotics and vasopressors, Lisa's condition deteriorated. She was transferred to the intensive care unit, where renal failure and septic shock overwhelmed her body's defenses. Cardiac arrest followed on the 3rd day. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention launched a traceback investigation. Inspectors swabbed processing lines at the packaging plant, discovering persistent Listeria colonies embedded in hard-to-clean machinery. Production was halted. A nationwide recall of the implicated product was issued, and the facility was temporarily shut down. The FDA mandated new sanitation protocols, requiring daily disassembly and sterilization of all food contact surfaces. Lisa's death became a case study in the hidden risks of mass-produced foods, where a microscopic lapse in hygiene can cross state lines and bypass every consumer safeguard. The incident prompted sweeping changes in inspection frequency and recall procedures, reminding the public that contamination can travel silently from factory floor to family table. On a humid summer night, a college bar in upstate New York offered a new spectacle: the Belly Buster Burger Challenge. The rules were simple: finish a 6-pound burger and a basket of fries in under 30 minutes, win a $100 bar tab and your photo on the wall. 21-year-old Jason Miller, cheered on by friends, took his seat as the crowd pressed in. He had never attempted a food challenge before, but the lure of social media glory and a round of free drinks proved irresistible. Within 15 minutes, Jason had forced down nearly 4 pounds of dense meat and bread, chasing each bite with water. His face reddened, sweat beading on his forehead. By the 18th minute, he clutched his abdomen, wincing at a sudden stabbing pain. Laughter faded as Jason doubled over, unable to stand. He vomited, then collapsed, unresponsive. Staff dialed 911. Paramedics arrived to find his abdomen distended and his pulse weak and thready. At the hospital, emergency surgeons discovered a catastrophic gastric rupture. More than 4 liters of partially digested food had torn a hole along the lesser curvature of his stomach. Massive contamination of the abdominal cavity triggered rapid onset peritonitis and septic shock. Despite aggressive surgery and intensive care, Jason was pronounced dead that night. The medical examiner's report cited acute gastric overdistension with perforation as the cause of death. A wrongful death lawsuit followed, alleging the bar failed to warn amateurs of the risks or provide medical supervision. The establishment settled, and the challenge was discontinued. Local ordinances soon required liability waivers and posted warnings for all eating contests. Jason's death became a cautionary tale, proof that the body's limits are absolute and that peer pressure can turn a night out into a fatal gamble. On a cold January night, 24-year-old Eric Vasquez left a downtown bar after hours of drinking with friends. His blood alcohol concentration, later measured at 0.32%, was high enough to depress the brainstem reflexes that protect the airway. As the group returned to a friend's apartment, Eric slumped onto a couch, drifting in and out of consciousness. At 2:17 in the morning, he began to vomit. The gag and cough reflexes, normally triggered to clear the throat, failed to activate. Lying flat on his back, Eric's airway filled with gastric contents. The oxygen supply to his brain was cut off in under 4 minutes. Friends assumed he was sleeping off the night. Labored, rattling breaths faded to silence. At 2:25 in the morning, someone noticed his lips turning blue and dialed 911. Paramedics arrived 6 minutes later and used suction to clear the airway, but Eric's heart had already stopped. Despite resuscitation efforts, he was pronounced dead at the scene. The autopsy confirmed asphyxiation due to aspiration of vomit, with no evidence of struggle or protective movement. Toxicology reports highlighted the role of high blood alcohol concentration in suppressing Eric's ability to protect his own airway. Interviews revealed that no one in the group knew to place him in the recovery position, on his side with the airway clear. In the weeks following Eric's death, local health officials launched an awareness campaign, distributing posters to bars and colleges describing the dangers of positional asphyxia and the life-saving value of the recovery position. Eric's story circulated in training videos and public service announcements, serving as a warning that a single overlooked detail, body position, can turn a night of celebration into an irreversible loss. In April 2018, a 45-year-old tourist from France sat down for dinner at a small, unlicensed restaurant in Osaka. The menu promoted a rare delicacy, fugu, also known as pufferfish, renowned for its subtle flavor and notorious for its lethal potential. The chef lacked proper certification and prepared the fish himself. Within 15 minutes of the first bite, the man noticed a tingling numbness across his lips and fingertips. He tried to stand, but his legs buckled and his speech slurred as paralysis spread. His wife dialed emergency services and reported that he could not move or breathe. By the time paramedics arrived, his breathing had slowed to shallow gasps. Tetrodotoxin, a neurotoxin concentrated in the pufferfish liver and ovaries, flooded his system. At a dose as low as 2 milligrams, less than a grain of salt, the toxin blocked sodium channels in nerve and muscle cells. Victims remained fully conscious as their muscles failed, descending into total paralysis. Within 40 minutes, his respiratory muscles were completely immobilized. Without immediate mechanical ventilation, his oxygen levels plummeted. Cardiac arrest followed before arrival at the hospital. The autopsy confirmed tetrodotoxin poisoning. No antidote existed. Survival depended entirely on rapid artificial respiration and intensive care. In this case, the delay proved fatal. Investigators traced the meal to a chef operating without a license, in violation of Japanese law. He was prosecuted for negligent manslaughter, and his restaurant was permanently closed. Local authorities tightened inspections and mandated visible warnings in all establishments serving fugu. Import restrictions were reinforced, and only certified chefs, subject to regular recertification, were allowed to prepare the dish. The case underscored the razor-thin margin between culinary thrill and chemical catastrophe. Even in a country where fugu was a centuries-old tradition, a lapse in training or oversight could deliver a dose measured in micrograms with no second chance. Each year, new warnings were issued. The line between delicacy and deadly was written not in taste, but in the invisible presence of a molecule that could silence a body in less than an hour. In June 2014, Logan Steiner, an 18-year-old high school senior in Ohio, prepared for final exams by ordering pure caffeine powder online. The package arrived without warning labels or dosing instructions. Logan measured out several spoonfuls, unaware that a single teaspoon contained as much caffeine as 28 cups of coffee. He mixed the powder into a sports drink and swallowed it in minutes, chasing the bitter taste with water. Within half an hour, his hands shook uncontrollably. He complained of a racing heart and nausea, then collapsed in his bedroom. Paramedics arrived to find him unresponsive, pulseless, and soaked in sweat. His heart had entered ventricular fibrillation, a chaotic rhythm triggered when caffeine levels in the blood exceed 70 milligrams per liter. Logan's blood contained more than 23 times the concentration seen after a typical energy drink. Defibrillation attempts failed. He was pronounced dead less than an hour after ingestion. The coroner's report listed acute caffeine toxicity as the cause of death, noting a total dose estimated at nearly 10 grams, enough to kill 5 healthy adults. Toxicologists traced the lethal mechanism. Caffeine acted as a powerful stimulant, overwhelming the heart's electrical system and causing fatal arrhythmias. Symptoms escalated rapidly, starting with palpitations and tremors, progressing to vomiting and chest pain, and ending in sudden cardiac arrest. Unlike most food-related toxins, caffeine's danger was hidden in its legality and accessibility. Powdered caffeine, sold in bulk containers, bypassed the normal safeguards of pre-measured drinks or pills. Logan's parents pressed lawmakers for action. The Food and Drug Administration issued a public warning citing deaths in multiple states. Within months, the agency banned retail sales of pure and highly concentrated caffeine powder to consumers. New regulations set age limits and strict labeling requirements. Retailers pulled products from shelves, and online platforms blocked shipments to the United States. The case closed with a stark metric. A dose equal to 50 cups of coffee, ingested in minutes, could kill even the healthiest young adult. Logan's death exposed a modern hazard, one that masqueraded as a harmless supplement. The speed and scope of the regulatory crackdown reflected the preventable nature of the tragedy, transforming a little-known loophole into a national safety standard. Across all 8 cases, one pattern stood out. The most basic human act could turn fatal when hidden risks went unrecognized or ignored. Food wasn't just sustenance, it was a potential hazard shaped by oversight, complacency, and occasional recklessness. These deaths reminded us that safety was never automatic, even in the ordinary. Every meal carried its own silent stakes. Stay alert, because the next tragedy could start on any plate.